This is the shoe that Dakotah Lindwurm wore at the trials as she secured her spot in the Olympic marathon. And it's also the shoe that she wore as she came in as top American in Paris just a few weeks ago. This is the Puma Deviaate Nitro Elite 3. It's time to take it for a run. Yo, what's going on? My name is Kofuzi and I'm a non-elite runner who reviews running shoes here on YouTube. And today I'm gonna talk to you guys all about the Puma Deviaate Nitro Elite 3. But before I give you my thoughts on this shoe, I do want to go over some disclosures. This is a pair of shoes that Puma sent to me for the purpose of review, so I didn't have to pay for these shoes. However, nobody's paying me to make this video or to include their shoe in this video, and no one's gonna get a chance to preview any of my footage or my thoughts before you guys get a chance to see this video on YouTube. So with that disclosure out of the way, let's talk about the Puma Deviaate Nitro Elite 3, and let's start with the specs. This is a 40mm stack height shoe, giving us the maximum height allowable by World Athletics rules for road marathons. And it's got an 8mm drop, giving us 32mm of stack height in the forefoot. Now in this midsole, we've got two components. We've got a power plate, which you could see through this little window at the bottom of the shoe. It's a carbon fiber plate that's stiffened compared to what we saw last year in the Puma Deviaate Nitro Elite 2. And the other really big difference that we have here is that increased level of stack height and the composition of that stack height. This year, Puma has changed their Nitro Elite foam, switching to that aliphatic TPU compound, the same aliphatic TPU compound that we saw in the shoe that I reviewed late last year in the Puma Fast R2. Now, protecting all this foam on the bottom is a nice layer of Puma grip. We got a large chunk in the forefoot and then a couple of patches on each side of the heel. Moving to the upper, we have a mono mesh similar to what we saw last year. This year, they're calling that mono mesh ultra weave. It's a strong yet light and flexible material. It's a little bit on the scratchy side, similar to how the mono mesh was last year. But overall, when you've got this shoe on and you've got socks on, the fit on this shoe is very snug and comfortable. As far as the tongue and the heel cup go though, there is a very light amount of padding in the tongue just to keep some pressure from the laces off your foot, and a minimal amount of padding through the heel cup, a lot less than the bumper pads that we saw last year in the Deviaate Nitro Elite 2. And there isn't very much structure, very floppy heel, again, like we saw last year. And again, this is something that I like to see when it comes to a racing shoe. I just don't like to have a lot of armor encapsulating the back of the heel. I like for the shoe to fit like a glove on the back of the heel, and this shoe does that very well. Now, putting it all together, Puma reports this shoe as coming under 200 grams, but when I weighed my US men's size 9 before I did any running in it, mine came a little bit higher than that, coming in at 7.1 ounces and 202 grams. Now that we've talked about what the shoe is like on paper, let's talk about what it was like on the road. The Puma Deviaate Nitro Elite 3 is fast and lightweight. It's a shoe that really emphasizes quick turnover, and it's a very exciting shoe to be able to run in. Compared to last year's version, there's just so much more cushion, which is the main thing that I wanted them to fix with the Deviaate Nitro Elite 2. It was a great foam. They used PBA in there, but there just wasn't enough foam for me to be able to want to take that the full marathon distance. They've definitely fixed that this year by adding in a bunch more stack height, but they've also changed the foam, and what I think they've done is they've really upgraded the foam. As much as we all have been loving PBA shoes, I've been really enjoying this aliphatic TPU. I think that Puma has a hit on its hands, as I think they're really the only ones using this specific type of compound. It's really lightweight, it's really spongy, but it's also really responsive at the same time. It's kind of a combination of things that don't really go together, because things that are cushioned usually aren't fast, because to be fast you have to be responsive, or in other words, firm. So it's a weird combination of sensations that I'm getting out of the material that's really exciting and well suited for racing, and it's also extremely light. And the other thing that this shoe has that also feels too good to be true is that it's really durable. Puma says that you should be able to get 250 miles of racing out of this shoe, which is just a lot higher than I typically recommend for people to hold on to their racing shoes. Now, I will say the one thing that the shoe tends to do is penalize overstriding, which is something that I do pretty much all the time, but it's not a painful kind of correction, which I sometimes see with other racing shoes that are directed towards or targeting runners with a really fast turnover or really high cadence. Instead, what I feel like is that it just kind of feels a little bit awkward when I'm kind of in my normal overstride, and it really just feels like the shoe has a much higher heel drop than the 8 millimeters that the shoe actually has. But when I can get my foot strike a little bit more directly underneath me and I'm turning over my legs a little bit faster, the shoe just really all starts to come together and everything just starts to click. And it feels really fun to move your legs quickly with the Puma Deviaate Nitro Elite 3. I feel like this shoe is really great for fast and short reps, but I think it's also really great because it's so cushioned for those long runs, especially if you're doing them with a lot of marathon effort miles. Puma says that this is a shoe that's going to be suitable for 5K racing all the way up to the marathon. And I think I agree with them on that one. I feel like this shoe has a great amount of range and versatility because it's so lightweight, because it has that quick turnover, but because it also has that really great cushion. Now, before we go any further, let's take a step back and talk about the Puma lineup a little bit more generally so that we can understand where the Deviate Nitro Elite 3 fits within the rest of the broader Puma lineup. Now, whenever I look at a running shoe brand, I always like to start with the daily trainer, and for Puma, that's the Velocity Nitro 3. This is the shoe that you're going to use for most of your runs, your everyday runs. This is going to be the workhorse in the lineup that soaks up most of the mileage. It's built for a little bit more durability, and it's built for a wider range of paces from easy all the way up to some light workouts. Now, for your races, that's where the racing shoe comes in, and that's where a shoe like the Deviate Nitro Elite 3 comes in. I'm gonna put this over here, and then in between those is something that is more of a training companion, and for Puma, that's the Deviate Nitro 3. Now remember, this is the Nitro Elite 3, and this is the Nitro 3. Now this has two types of foam in it, nitro foam and last year's version of Nitro Elite foam in it. So there's two really nice foams in this shoe, and there's a carbon plate inside as well. So it kind of has features of the daily trainer, has some features of a race shoe all put together in here. But again, it's built for a little bit more durability and versatility. You can use it for some easy runs. You could use it for some workouts. Now, something that people ask me a lot when it comes to the Nitro 3 and the Nitro Elite 3, and I think a lot of it's because those two names are similar, is like, is one an upgrade from the other, or is one like a cheaper version of the other? And I really don't think of them like that. I think of them as different tools for different jobs. The Nitro Elite 3 is the racing shoe, and the Nitro 3 is more of that workout shoe, that shoe that you will bring out for some tough workouts, but not necessarily a race in. Now, for days where you're feeling a little beat up and you want something to pamper yourself a little bit, there's a couple of offerings in the Puma lineup. I really like the Forever Run in this spot. It's got two different types of foam in here, a little bit firmer nitro foam, and then a squishier soft blue layer that you can kind of see through some of these windows in the outsole that are in here that make it really comfortable on those days where you need to be a little bit nicer to yourself. There's also the Magnified Nitro that fits in this spot as well. I haven't tested that shoe, but I have been really enjoying the Forever Run. And so this could be like a nice quartet of shoes that you could use for an entire training block. Now, the other shoe that I think could kind of confuse some people as well is, what about that Fast R2 that we talked about a little bit earlier today as well? Now, this is a carbon plated racing shoe that has that aliphatic TPU in it, and it's definitely a racing shoe. Now, I don't necessarily think it needs to slot in anywhere in here, but instead it's really going to be an either or. You're going to be a person who responds either really well to the Deviate Nitro Elite 3, or you're going to be someone who responds really well to the Fast R2. Now, I really enjoy both of these shoes, but if I had to pick one of the two, I'd probably go with the Fast R2. Puma says that this shoe is designed for people who have more powerful strides, and that's kind of where I find myself. And I also sometimes think that powerful strides is a really polite way of saying slower cadence or slower turnover, and that really fits me really well. I just enjoy the real pop and springy sensation that I'm getting from the Fast R2. So this would be kind of what my ideal lineup would look like from Puma, but also having the Deviate Nitro Elite 3 would also be a really great lineup to have as well, especially if you're more of that faster turnover kind of runner and this shoe speaks to you a little bit more. This would be the way that you would want to construct your lineup from Puma. Now let's wrap up the video by talking about the buying guide and some alternatives that you might want to also consider. The Puma Deviate Nitro Elite 3 is a light, fast, and snappy racing shoe that you could use for your 5K races all the way up to your marathon races. And it's a highly durable shoe as well. So it's something that you can also use for a lot of workouts. You're gonna be able to use the shoe way more than just on race day. And at $230, I feel like this is a really great option for people looking to buy their first carbon-plated racing shoe. But we've also seen that this shoe is certainly capable enough for Olympians to use on the biggest world stage. But let's take a look at some of the competition and see where the $230 stacks up. The first competitor you should consider if you're looking at the Deviate Nitro Elite 3 is from the Swoosh, and that's the Vaporfly 3. I think both of these shoes are trying to accomplish similar things. They are very lightweight shoes with aggressive geometries that lead to a very quick turnover. I feel like the heel drop feels even more aggressive in the Vaporfly 3, and I feel like the Vaporfly 3 is a much less comfortable shoe to put on as it has a much narrower last. And I feel like the way that this shoe snaps back with each stride makes it so you have to be a little bit careful about your hamstrings when running really fast in the Vaporfly 3. But I feel like both of these shoes are trying to accomplish very similar things in very similar ways. And the Vaporfly 3 comes in at a $20 premium of $250. Now, also coming in at $250 is the other shoe that I think stacks up really well against the Deviate Nitro Elite 3, and that's from ASICS. That is the Metaspeed Edge Paris. Now, ASICS has two different kinds of marathon racers. They have the Edge and the Sky, and I feel like the Edge is that shoe that's designed more for people who have faster turnover. This is also a very lightweight shoe that is comfortable, just like the Deviate Nitro Elite 3 is comfortable. But I also say that the ASICS Edge Paris is much more aggressive of a shoe, and it's one of those shoes that, for me, if I'm not hitting the shoe exactly how it wants me to, I feel like I'm getting a lot of discomfort in the arches as I try to run along in this shoe. Personally, I'm more of a Metaspeed Sky Paris person, and so the Edge for me has been a difficult shoe to run in unless I'm running shorter distances like half marathon races or shorter. Both shoes are pretty comfortable as far as racing shoes go though, but if you're looking for a little bit more volume in the toe box, I'd say you should look toward the Metaspeed Edge Paris. So those are my thoughts on the Deviate Nitro Elite 3. Even though it's not squarely targeted for a runner like me, I do find that I'm really enjoying this shoe quite a bit, and I think it's going to be one of my favorite racing shoes for 2024. If you have any other questions about this shoe or any of the other shoes that I talked about today, please feel free to put them in the comments down below, or better yet, stop by the live stream that I do Mondays and Thursdays over on the Kofuzi Run Club channel. I'd love to talk to you guys over there in the chat. That's all I have for today, everybody. Thanks so much for making it all the way to the end of this video. Hopefully you guys are staying safe out there on your runs, and I will see you in the next one.
Yo, what's going on?